This was one of my favorite ones. I mostly put in there because Judy put that real fat picture of me in there earlier. She didn't like this. This was a picture of a wonderful Abutilon. I thought it was quite stunning. I think, here's a video.
Calicanthus. Say that one more time into the camera. It's now called Calicanthus chinensis. Calicanthus sinensis. Okay. It used to be Calicanthus sinensis. Okay, the female parent of the Ralstonia. Cool. I thought the leaf looked like that, but
We'll pause there for just a second. Because interspersed in my presentation are a few of these lovely videos. I will tell you now, if you tend to get seasick, you might want to look away. All these were taken with my iPhone, all these pictures and videos, but I thought you'd get a kick out of actually hearing some of the people talk, and I appreciate Viv talking some horticulture there too. This is, of course, the lovely Sue Lancaster serving tea today. And these were the most incredible scones, and she had wonderful things. And she gave us the recipe, so I made a few copies should you want some wonderful scone recipes. It's just a delight. Many of you remember Sue from when she came with Roy for our 30th anniversary. This is a few of us enjoying the wonderful tea. I think Sam might have sent me this picture. Just a delight. Their backyard, all was sitting there with this wonderful tea. And Mark may tell you later, but Roy and Sue their garden is not open to the public. And it's really only open to very special friends. So this was a huge treat for all of us to see this by someone who's just a treasure. I can't tell you how much I love Roy. So now we're going to skip, and I think Sam and Bruce sent me this picture, because we also went to Kew. After the next day, our next go to Kew Gardens. And we took the train there and then walked. It's a wonderful walk. So I love this picture going down in the tube. And I think Sam and/or Bruce sent me this as well. Wonderful panoramic view of the glass house at Kew.
okay, I think I'm taking another movie now. Barbara Brown, wave to the camera. Roberta, Nat, the Solomons, Judy. All right. Bobby Ward told me to post more videos so they could get it there. So here we are, still a queue with these incredible flowers and poppies. And in here is the trial garden areas, if you will, of Kew. Beautiful, lovely, oh gorgeous.
Wonderful yellow flowers and purple
Yeah,
flowers.
exactly.
That's one of my favorite parts. Dr. Solomon in the background saying, and some nice lovely yellow flowers and red flowers. Dean Solomon is the dean of PAMS here at the NC State University, and I love that fact. We kind of clicked on that, horticultural thing. This is also at Kew, and this is the Kew Palace. I had been to Kew a number of times, but had never actually taken this tour, and it was quite delightful. Of course, at one time, the gardens of Kew were the playgrounds of the kings, and this palace sat there. And this was George III. This was one of his favorite things. And you'll remember that King George went mad, mostly because of those crazy colonists that were giving him a real headache. And then, of course, this is his lovely bride. I love this quote that was there. I thought that's such a man thing to come back and say. This picture was taken when she was about 17. And of course, this is the royal throne room at the Kew Palace. I had to throw that in. I thought that was very cute. Okay.
Speaking of magnificent trees, Turner's Oak. This tree was planted in 1798. Now, this is an old tree.
Pretty old. You don't have to listen to my commentary, other than one of the most awesome things at Kew are these grand old trees. The age, the immensity, just how beautiful. So this one I decided to go up underneath it, and it was just like, I don't know how to tell you, the wind was rustling through it. It was really one of God's creations, no doubt. It's quite lovely. And the next picture shows this tree a little bit from a distance, and it's hard to see it in perspective, but if you figure these are about 4 feet, you kind of get an idea of this magnificent tree. Of course, this was taken with my iPhone, so nothing fancy. So after Q, we had some free days, and one of the free days, several of our group, I think about 6 people, is that right, Roberta?
Yeah.
I know there were about 6 of them that went to Sissinghurst. And Bruce and Sam sent this picture taken up. And of course, Sissinghurst, it's often been said that our own white garden at the JCRA Arboretum is sort of patterned after the white garden of Sissinghurst. And then Mary Jo sent that picture, sort of similar. It was quite lovely. Unfortunately, they had a little bit of a rainy day, but I think y'all still had a good time, didn't you? And then one of the groups, 4 girls, decided to take, and Charlie got a stick, decided to go to Paris for the day. It's almost crazy, and we were crazy. We zipped out real early in the morning and hit Paris. Of course, this is Notre Dame, and what I mentioned that is Charlie's stick. These are 3 of the girls walking inside of the Louvre there. And I said it's always fun to see a good old North Carolina girl on the streets of Paris. And this is again me and my artsy fartsy shots. I thought I was being cute, but we love this tree. It's sitting right there just outside of the Louvre, and I thought it was lovely. And I won't tell you the caption of my picture because I was censored before. Okay, and so here's Charlie on the stick and the Eiffel Tower. Everybody recognize it. With Sheila. And now we're back in London again, right? As I mentioned, right down the street was the Victoria and Albert. And this is the grand entrance, one of my favorite museums, and that's, of course, a big Chihuly piece that hangs right in the Victoria and Albert. And I had to show you this because you know you're old when one of your dolls is now in the Victoria and Albert. And I said, I have to, Bob Lyons and I used to laugh because we always worked in the word juxtaposition in our talks. Well, he did. This is my first talk, so notice the juxtaposition of this one doll and the new Barbie doll. Okay, now the shoe picture. And this is a picture we found out, thanks to Sheila, she was able to grab this picture before the sales lady came and said, oh, no, you can't take these pictures. But you will notice, this is the store where I did buy these shoes, in case no one noticed them earlier. I know they kind of fade into the background. And I told many of you these are mine are rather conservative compared to some of them, but a remarkable and kind of a fun place. Okay. Another wonderful adventure we had was going to the Chelsea Physics Garden, and I know they're going to be Mark and Tim and so forth going to be talking about it. And I love this that 1673, just like that was an old tree. This is an old garden. But fascinating. And one of the fascinating things, they had great signage showing the type of medicines that now have come out of the different botanicals. And so it's quite an experience. You spend quite a long time reading some of those. This is my award-winning iPhone picture. I'm going to try to do a watercolor or something that will be in the Gale in the Garden on May 6, 2012. So, but I thought that was quite lovely. Again, that was at the Chelsea Physics Garden. Okay, moving real quickly to the private gardens that we took a day to go visit, and then on to Wisley. The lovely lady right here on the left is my cousin by marriage, Pam Sikera, and she had introduced me. I had tried to get her to allow us to go to her private garden, but she demurred because everybody goes, oh, my garden's not good enough for this group. So she introduced us to 2 fabulous gardens in Surrey, and the Stoneleigh Garden actually. Roy Lancaster had also recommended, so it was quite lovely, and you're going to see some fabulous pictures of that as well. But this was taken in March, and it's interesting contrast, which you'll see later. But this is Shirley Stoneleigh. I think it's the movie. No, this is the kind of before. And keep in mind, this is in March, and then you'll see what we saw just 3 months later. But of course, it has lovely, bones to the garden as well. That's sort of the after picture. But I think is the movie next. It'll rain a little bit, but who cares? Really, who cares? Except the camera may get a little wet. Look at these cool things right here. Fantastic. Roses. I mean, there's something for everybody in this garden. Look at here. I don't know what the name of it is. Hopefully somebody can identify at some point.
Getting your toes wet, lady. Oh, this is fun.
Who cares what the name of things are? We're just... Even Mark couldn't talk horticulture to me. Of all varieties of hostas and everything. Now they have this adorable gate closed open right now, but if you close it, it makes this wonderful little circle. Okay, oh, there's their... So the Solomons sent me some of their favorite pictures, and I love this quote, so I'm going to kind of start out with the quote that they sent, because I believe the Stonely Garden was one of their favorites as well. This was one of the Solomons' lovely pictures. Woodbury Vista. This was sort of at the top level. Was this at the top level? And this is Shirley Stonely. Of course, one of our participants, Judy Springer from Virginia. And then the $1 million question is, what was that dog's name? Anybody remember? Absolutely adorable dog. And you see it had these wonderful little long eyelashes. Just precious. That's our us. Lots of photo ops going on.
Some good looking hats.
Yeah, that's Bob Stonely. These two pictures were sent by Mary Jo because Bob actually designed and built this lovely water feature with the stonework. It's quite lovely, kind of set on edge. And they were found and gifted stones, which I thought was quite lovely. Then moving on in Surrey, we went to the Little Prairie Cottage, and this was actually the farmer's, the gardener's cottage back in 1885, I believe it was built. And it was Liz and Richard Ramsey. Thank you. This is an old aerial view of the property. You can see some of these. Some of these old greenhouses. This one now, I think you'll see in some of their slides, have now been refurbished. And this was a picture I took in March, again trying just to kind of give you an idea of what it looked like 3 months earlier. This garden also had beautiful sculpture in it all throughout. She had a demonstration of some of the old garden markers that they found. Sitting up on the hill is the priory, which was this estate. And this was a bucky duck. Which I thought was quite unusual. In fact, I'm going, what is that? And Tim's going to talk about that later. In March, I took this picture. I think Tim has some better pictures, but this shows one of the glass houses that they've refurbished, and then some of the old ones that haven't, although they're still using that space. And of course, they have orchards and all sorts of wonderful things there. Oh, and now we're at Wisley.
That's a nice place to take a nap. The Alpine Landscape House.
The Alpine section of Wisley is one not to be missed. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. We'll see some other pictures of Mark and Tim.
Mark and Tim having to recharge their batteries or taking so many pictures.
I forgot, I have one more movie. Okay. This is the Ducky movie. And this is also with... Sorry. These ducks were just sleeping. Tim, Bob, and I were standing literally sleeping on them.
This is at the very bottom of the rock garden here.
And you look up this beautiful rock garden hill, and up at the top are all the Alpine houses and trough gardens. They have a new crevice garden that's really incredible. But quite lovely. Next. And listen, they also have these various little vignette gardens that are quite lovely, and they put different things in them. This is one of my favorites. So Bonnie and I were walking around this week, looking at some of our favorites.
Right. Look at this adorable tree. It's little pine cones.
Adorable, precious, how cute. I just love little things like that. It's so precious.
Precious.
Did I say something? not to.
This is Horticulture to me. So I'm gonna just pan
You
around.
can see, and they had a number of these, like 8 of these different gardens. Something that I think we may think about patterning some of our own townhouse gardens or show gardens. And of course, this is Mary Jo. Barbara sent this picture of the delphiniums that she was going to put those in her pocket. Look quite lovely. And so now we're skipping to yet another day, and one of our last days visiting with wonderful Beth Chatto. And I wanted to thank Bobby because he was the one who really helped us get her to come out and talk with us because he'd known her for several years. And you'll notice she's holding this wonderful book here of that we gave her that Bobby Ward wrote about JCRA. She wrote him a lovely thank you note, which I've made a copy of and put over there if you want to read it. And I believe the next one.
That plants are like people, like you, would not like to be pushed into the nearest available job. So a plant doesn't want to, if you've got a plant in your hand, I'll put it there because there's a space. I mean, if it's a plant that needs shade and it's here, well, it's no good putting it here. There's no way I could grow delphiniums and all sorts of things here, which want cooler, moister soil. They're down there in hollow.
So, Mary before said that. You want to tell them a little bit more about what they said?
Did people hear what she said? She said plants are like people. They don't want to be pushed into the next available job. So you put, in other words, if you have ever read or seen her books or know of her, it's the right plant in the right place. And so she's saying you wouldn't put a delphinium or a water-loving plant here in this open, sunny spot. They'd be down in the hollow. And then the next video is really precious when she's getting ready to leave us. She's told us that she's 88 years old, and she was talking about how she used to travel to the States, and she had to stop doing that when she was caring for her husband. And Anne invites her to come back, and she says, well, I'm like my mother used to say, I'm like an old tractor, a bit rusty. So as the video starts, she's going to say, but not too rusty to enjoy your visit. Which is really sweet, and then she sort of gives us our send-off. And then Bobby asks her about soup and bread, so that's what's going to come next.
They had a wonderful cafe there with incredible homemade soups that they're still making.
Not too rusty to enjoy having you here and still to enjoy my garden.
Thank you very much.
And I hope you will also, through your gardens and through your love of plants, have a long, happy and calm peace of mind in your garden.
Did you give the recipe for the soup? Because you fed Jack and myself soup and homemade bread.
Oh, well, we still do in the kitchen here. I obviously don't organise food in the kitchen, but the staff do, and I'm in contact with it. I was suggesting a new idea for a recipe only this week, so anyway.
She makes marvelous soup and homemade bread.
Yes.
Well, used to, at least.
I still make soup and bread for myself, but I can't do it for the public. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth.
Bye-bye.
It's also their 50-year anniversary. Two happy friends in the garden.
I was telling Mitzi earlier, we had just agreed after that whole conversation with Beth and Bobby that we were the luckiest girls in the world.
Luckiest girls in the world. Yes, indeed. We all felt that way. I love this. Bruce is actually helping out some other tourists getting their picture. There were so many photo ops here. This was just stunning. I mean, views like this, you'll see more. This was one of the woodland areas. This was in her little, she had a little shop there. I loved these primulas. I would have loved to brought some back. Then moving on right after that, she recommended that we go on our way back to London, stop at Hyde Hall. There's Sheila sort of Vanna Whiting for the sign. I believe Barbara Brown or Mary McClure, these are Judy Springer's pictures, sent us a couple of this. And there's a big storm moving in, so you see sort of how ominous the sky looks. But Mary Jo, and that's actually Farmer Raleigh, which we thought was cute. Barbara Brown sent that to us. And then this is the group sort of at the end with Derek, who was our bus driver. He was only supposed to drive the first day to pick us at the airport and to the hotel. He loved our group so much that he stayed with us the whole trip, and we really had a good time and had a lovely bus and accommodation. And my last picture is our final dinner. We started it with a lovely trip at the beginning was a lovely tea, English tea, and we ended with this beautiful dinner. And I said, I don't know whether it's because everybody is so animated or if the photographer had one too many glasses of wine. I'm not sure. But wonderful time. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this over to the next person. Thank you, Mark. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think Ann did pretty good for, she said she didn't give presentations. You can turn that off, nobody wants to see that. You all hear me? All right. I want to jump right in. I don't have a whole lot of slides, just a few things, a few glamour shots of Q and Wisley. You know, it's amazing. You could go stand anywhere in some of these great gardens, Q, Wisley, these places, and just, you know, do a 360 and take photos, and you look like you're, you know, a professional photographer. And you know, as you can see with Ann, you can do that with a video camera, just take 360. You know, fantastic place. I will say this. Let me go back. This picture, the reason it's fuzzy is I understand. See, I'm at the far end of the table. My wife is in here somewhere, and I kept hearing these cackling laughter around my wife, which scared me a little bit. So my wife in laughing at something my wife said. Right here, running.
With good
Rosie's
reason.
turning around saying, "Oh my gosh," and I don't want to know what she said. It's always better for me not. You know, Q is one of those places. If you're a gardener, you got to get to at some point. It's so amazing. It's where so much of the modern gardening really started. And you know, it's a fantastic place. If you don't know much about it, it's got all these wonderful structures, buildings, pagodas. There's a great book called The Hookers of Q, which is not about, you know, streetwalkers and the kings, but it's about the you know, Joseph Hooker and his father, you know, who really started the landscaping there. If you read this, you hear about where they built all these different things and how they would say, we really need something at the end of this vista, and they build it, or they would build something and then they come through and rip out and make these incredible vistas through there. It's really kind of gardening on this massively grand scale where you would excavate huge ponds and lakes, and then, you know, a generation later you fill it in and build it, put a hill there. It really is this kind of we can do whatever we want to the land and create our own kind of special place. It's amazing. The rock garden there was just beyond belief, and you know, people like me and Tim who like to look at every single little plant, spend a lot of time, take a lot of pictures in all these places because you can cram so many plants in there. You know, you can only put so many 1700s era oaks in a spot, but a million plants there. And Tim promised me he's got every plant that he took a picture of coming up after me. He's spending a quarter of a second on each one, so compare. But there are some things that we can grow. I love this. I saw this from a distance, and it's golden Coliseum maple. We do that. That's the arboretums. Yeah, that in another 150 years, you know, we can have kind of the same look. That's it inside. You get in there like Andy's, and you get to these huge, massive trees, and you can't help but go underneath there and see kind of their bones underneath because they're so amazing. So you do that a lot at Q. If you get out beyond some of the buildings, you just go from one of these massive trees to the next. But even if you go inside, it's kind of hard to see. This cycad is, they think, perhaps the oldest pot plant in the world, potted plant, it's not a pot plant, but it was brought back to Q in 1789. It's still growing in a container in their conservatory. So you don't even have to go out into under these massive trees to see things in incredible age. I will say, though, the oldest living things in the world are here in the U.S. So we haven't cultivated them for that long, but you go out to the Bristlecone pine forest. We have old trees too. You know, I just put this in here because it reminded me of a plant that I want to grow here. I've tried to grow here in the eastern U.S. forever. Is Nothophagus. It's one of these southern hemisphere kind of analogs to some of our beaches. They call them southern beaches. And I'm walking along Q, and all of a sudden I stumble across one. This is a hybrid Nothophagus, and I look around, and there's about 12 different Nothophagus around me. Something that probably 12 other people who visit there get really excited about, because there's really nothing terribly fantastic about it, other than the fact that I can't grow them. So a lot of time taking pictures. Then move on to the other kind of great, really grand garden. We went to Wisley, which from a landscape perspective is, I think, a little bit nicer than Kew, but both of them are so phenomenal. And look at that house. I wouldn't mind having a bedroom right here looking out over the garden. And their walkways, their vistas, their perennial borders. We think our perennial border here is deep, wonderful border there. They're about 20 feet deep and just spectacular. We were told a lot about this wonderful Henry Moore statue that was out there, and so some of the group made a pilgrimage out there to see it. I must admit, I was looking at plants, not statues. We didn't see it, but Sheila interpreted the Henry Moore statue. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see this either. I didn't have to see it because we got through it. Sheila's next career will be in interpretation. But it's just one beautiful thing after another. The rose garden, oh my gosh. The Alpine house, Ann showed that. She was busy taking pictures of kittens and ducks. I promise you there were plants there. And these incredible tree, these rhododendron trees. This is rhododendron auriculatum. This is 25, 30 feet tall, full flower. But for those of y'all who heard me talk about this before we went, when I was trying to convince people to go, the high point, I'm telling you, I still get chills when I think about it. We went to Hillier Gardens with Roy Lancaster, who was maybe the first, I'm not sure if he was the first curator or one of the early curators of Hillier Nursery, the art read for Hillier's Nursery, which was this fantastic nursery that sold just a huge amount of woody plant material, sent people out collecting, Roy out collecting all over the place. One of the most knowledgeable plants people in the world, and a great gardener, and one of the most absolutely fantastically nice people you'll ever come across. Just absolutely fantastic. Can't say that enough. This is kind of an old manual, Hillier's manual. There's new editions. It's still in print. This is my old 1988 version, where it was in probably its 20th printing at that point. They're still putting out new ones now. And this served, and actually this book, 1988, this is, you can't tell, but it's about 3.5 inches thick. This was their catalog. If you go to the front of this book, it tells you how to order the plants in there, how to get the plants. This was their catalog. You think Harrodswood and some of these other places had big catalogs? This is the granddaddy, and it's a hardback. But there is connection. JC visited, I can't remember what year that was. 95, and they had not met before, but both knew each other by reputation, and apparently it was just complete, a meeting of the minds, and they clicked. It was all about plants with them. Rainy day, and they're out there chatting about the plants. But my connection with Roy is, I came across this book, I don't know how many years ago, and it's this big old book. It's the hardest thing to lay in bed and read with, but I did every night before I go to bed. I read, and I would like put it off and try not to read it because I enjoyed it so much that I wanted it to last. But you can see it's all ripped up and it's falling apart for me. It's this big, massive, heavy thing, and it was about some of Roy's trips to China, which made me want to do that. That made me want to go collect plants. And I did. Back in '97, he came to Atlanta when I was there, and he signed my book for me. I got to walk around the Atlanta Botanic Garden with him. And so I'd already met him once, but really just wanted to visit him. And so this was absolutely fantastic. Now Roy's, not only has he written books, and there are a bunch of other books, but none of them like the Plants from China book. But he's got plants named after him, like Toniaster lancasteri, Hypericum lancasteri, all kinds of plants. So here's Hilliers, wonderful place, German house where you saw we had a picture taken. Just, you know, some places are just indescribable. The collection of plants, almost all these plants are phenomenally unusual plants, rare species, which that is our taxodium right there in the middle. But set in a beautiful, beautiful landscape. Beaten bog gardens, great conifer collections by Selma. Ilex there, Ilex Conifers, great. I mean not Ilex, Porpoise Conifers, great oak, lots of leaves. You know, so you have these wild, you know, these incredible species that have been collected wild. Cultivars too, Eucryphia ballerina. I'm not going to get too deep into the plants here. I did love seeing this. Now I have seen this and I've grown this plant. It's I'm not going to give you the whole name. It's the longest named plant, Rosa sericea, subspecies Omiense, I don't know the whole name. Forma terracantha. Look at this rose with these great things. But I saw this in Roy's book for the first time. And so I was so excited to see it at Hilliers growing, because this is one of the plants that I really connect with that book. Ted, I put this in here for you. Just want you to see that we were working. There's Ann with the membership brochure. She is working hard constantly while we were there. But we're really blown away. We got to go to Roy's house. And Roy does not live on a big piece of property. It's a very relatively small piece of property. My property is larger than his. But it is packed with all these plants that Roy thinks are really special. And he was so much fun to get down there. We're going around, we're looking at the plants, and all of us are oohing and eyeing over it. And Tim and I are tripping over each other trying to get to the next rare plant. There's one plant after another that we've never heard of in there. And Roy calls us back into a little corner. He shows us these 3 little mahonias, 3 species we've never heard of. You know, I don't know where on earth they came from for him to get them, but you know, just still, it's so excited about plants, and when other people are excited about it, he just gets even more excited. The beautiful garden. This is his back garden. It's got kind of a little, you know, a patio with plantings around it, a little turf area, and then it kind of goes back into some shady spots back. Got to have tea with Roy and his wife. I mean, what could you get if you ask for it? I was actually, this is one of the few things that would make me sit down in his garden, those stones and other things there. Kept trying to point out other things so I could grab more food. But I love this, right at the corner of his house, this little mahonia, Roselii, that he has. But what I loved about it was, I had looked through some of these old photos of JC's early on, and right here, this is that exact same corner where this is growing now. Now I'm sure there's been about 8 plants through there in this time since, because I have a feeling Roy keeps likes to keep changing things up. Which incidentally, the person who took this photo is now the director of the Mercer Arboretum in Humboldt, Texas. I got an email from him a couple weeks ago, and it just so happened as I was looking at this, I looked at the photographer and I said, "Oh, look at that, Darren Dooley, man. He's down in Texas now." So we've already sent him plants down. Another plant from Roy's book, Abelia floribundus, it's great 3-inch long flowers. And this was another thing I got from Roy's writing was, you know, we get so hung up on hardiness zones, and you know, there's a new hardiness map that just came out. You put in your zip code and it'll zoom you down to where you are. And we're 7B, which of course means you can't grow zone 8 plants here. You got 7B. It's very. But what I love about the English and what I got from Roy was this idea of wall plants. What they mean by wall plants are plants that there is no way in heck you should be growing outside because they're not hardy at all, but you put them up against your wall and you grow them there. And so they call them wall plants. And this Abelia is one of those. You know, it's kind of a sprawling thing you put up right next to your house. And he grows little tiny things in troughs. He's very indiscriminate in his plants. He likes them all, which is why we connect so well with him here in our group. And it was great to see some of the plants I'm excited about. Fatsia polycarpa I collected in Taiwan. He's got that growing in his garden, so you know it's got to be good. And this is the one that made my jaw drop. It's kind of hard to see because the plant behind it, but Carpinus fangiana. This is one of those plants that plant people really want. I was at a conference in California. It's a plant exploration symposium. It's all these great plants people. And this was one of those plants that everybody kept talking about. Do you know where one is? Do you know where I can get some? You know where I can get some wood for it and try grafting it? I don't succeed, anything. Nobody knew where you could get it. The fruit clusters can grow to 18 inches long. They look like little monkey tails hanging out of the tree. And look at that. I'm standing in front of Carpinus fangiana. Boy, laying down his arm around my phone. I'm telling you what, this may be the high point. I'm married, I have 2 children. This may be it. I'm going to try to smile that big on my face at my wedding. So it's a wonderful trip, and it is, you know, I look back, and I'm such a plant person, and all these incredible plants we've done. But what I think back to is spending time with Roy, which was wonderful, and we've been able to keep some conversations going since we come back, and all the people we traveled with. Really was a great trip with this group of people. We had a lot of fun everywhere we went, even when we weren't with the plants. So I will pass this on to whoever is next. Okay, remember, quarter of a second per plant, so be quick. I'm taking notes.
Fortunately, I did not do that then. Unlike what Mark just said, I didn't show everything. So let's see what we do. Since Mark already concentrated a little bit on Wesley and on Q, I thought I'd do a little bit more of the smaller gardens, the private gardens that Ian mentioned earlier. This, of course, is the Woodbury Cottage in Narragansett, England. And it was one of the most spectacular private gardens I've been to. I've only been to a few, I have to say, but this garden is only about the size of maybe 2 of these auditorium here, twice the size. So squeeze hundreds and thousands of plants probably. But great little garden in the front, or in this picture here. You can see the lower left-hand corner here. Cosmos Oscarsuberina, and the geranium, the blue geranium up there is probably Rosamine, and then just a little vignette there with the red Berezia and numerous other things. Let's see what happens here. I just have some slideshows here. This is one here with Delphinium and Philadelphus, and then going on to the little grassland area. The little rock garden with the form there in the middle. That little green ball in the middle is actually a hebe, which you'll see some later on. Poppies, just everything's so lush. And they were in a drought. Here we go. That was just the whole garden, which you saw earlier. The next garden we went to, of course, was the Priory Garden. It was not too far away, maybe 10 miles away, I'm guessing. It's hard to guess, but we saw it was a very different garden from the Woodbury Cottage. Being it was an oldest part of an old estate, it was much more open, but great plants in there. Up in the corner, you got the Buddleia globosa that Ann showed earlier, which I'd only ever seen in the Pacific Northwest. It doesn't really like our climate here, unfortunately, but it's just that orange is just so screaming out at you. The violas, which don't do too well here in our summers, but this, I think, Viola Corsica or Cornuda, I don't know which one. And then, how often do you see fava beans? A couple trials actually. They were having, or broad beans, not fava beans, broad beans, which they had in an area they used for vegetables and fruits. They had currants and grapes, a small vineyard area actually. It was kind of interesting here. There's just a few shots here from there. What she's holding is actually a yarrow, basically. It's a giant yarrow. This is the house, in the front of it there. And this is the compost bin. The poppies. The gunnera. And this is the long one of the wall garden. It's just that the calamitha there was just spectacular with that grass coming up from that. All right, take it back. It's a naphtha. That is a catlin. The clematis in there. And each morning, I got up early, and I couldn't sleep. I never got on this time schedule over there. I would wake up strangely very early. I couldn't figure that out. I would get up at 5, and then I'd do my photos and stuff from the day before, and I'd go out in the mornings and walk the street. And these are some of the pictures I took then, just a handful, and some of the, some things, it's very different over there. There's no space, this window boxes, all the more that you could put in this landscape here. There were several of them on this house. What I really liked here is the middle there, those kind of like azaleas, but they're, for me, it's Pelargonium extravesticum, the Martha Washington or regal geraniums. The professor I worked for at Penn State bred them, so it's kind of really cool for me to see them actually being used in a landscape. You don't see them here in the United States, or at least in the East Coast. And he also did other geraniums, but just to see that that was kind of cool. But, this slide showed you some of the ways that they deal with lack of space, basically in England, in London in particular. You can see these terrace gardens, or not terrace, but balcony gardens, using every little space for roof garden. And this was just down a little street. You see all these containers, and then just the next slide here was just up the alley actually, and they even used their garbage, did a waste removal stuff there. And then this was a little private garden, Alderton Crescent. Spectacular garden. You see these throughout the city. They're all fenced in. You can't get into them unless you have a key. But you can look over the hedge. And I love fuchsias. The fuchsias over there look crazy. It was 5 or 6 foot tall fuchsias in fact. And then the ceanothus, which these are the West Coast genera. We can grow a few of them here, but we can't get any of these blue ones. Very often we grow them. I have one down here in the Zero Garden. We'll see what happens this year with flowers. Just love those colors, and then the lighting is so different over there. It's not our beating sun that we have, so colors just jump out at me. And then these are just a few. I didn't do that many plants. But, some of the plants that, like Mark was saying with the Nothofagus, that we can't grow here, but it's just so cool seeing them, and you just wish you could grow them. And in this picture, of course, is the gunner there in the background, and the giant dragonfly there. I just love that really nice photo. And this was at Hilliers, actually. Let's see what I have here. Oh, the Hebes. I love Hebes. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but they're woody veronicas basically from New Zealand. And New Zealand does not get hot in the summer, but it doesn't get cold in the winter. They do fine for our winters most of the time, but they don't do our summers. I've killed numerous ones. I have one that survived last summer, but these are just a few of the varieties that you see over there. The one up there in that upper corner, the blue-purple, is probably about 5 or 6 feet tall. While these other ones were low mounds, maybe 2 to 3 feet tall. You get the whites, the pinks, the blues, the purples, or in this case, this one here in the corner doesn't actually flower. It looks more like a conifer. You could use it as a substitute for that, actually. Beautiful plants. I have several in the nursery that I'm going to see if I can kill this summer. We'll see what happens. And then the conifers. Mark actually showed this Selma up there earlier in his park too. That was one I've never heard of. It's a conifer from New Zealand, or not New Zealand, Tasmania. And then the Willenia nobilis. I have killed one of those here in the garden. I need to try it again. And, you occasionally see the Araucaria araucana here in the southeast, but they tend not to last that long. They don't get 40 feet tall and a trunk that's a couple feet across. So cool. That was at Kew, and as was the Willenia. The Delselma was at the Hilliers Arboretum. And then the Mahonias that Mark, or plants that Mark mentioned that Roy took Mark and I back into this corner to show were these 3 Mahonias, which we had never heard of or seen. It's so cool, this Mahonia imbricata up there in the corner. It's so cool. Very different from any other little Mahonia I've seen. And we have so many of them in the garden. And the Shenii, very different from that, no spines on that, or on the Microphylla as well. They're just tiny. He had got them in. I forget where he told us he got those from, how he got those. But he was one of the first ones in the country to actually get them. It wasn't at an institution, basically. So we had them hiding. I don't think too many others got to see them. Here we go. And then, let's go back here. These are just a variety of other things we saw. This was a rhododendron. This is a South American plant. This is as well. They don't like our heat. The rhododendron probably wouldn't take our winter as well. That rhododendron just gorgeous. I put that in there. This is one I really like. The Prunus lusitanica variegata. We can grow that. That we can't grow. Echinopsis won't take heat whatsoever. Another Tropicaleum. That's another South American plant. This is an annual relative, like it's from southern Europe, in the Alps. No, it won't grow here. Like slimy soils, rock gardens. That's just growing in a crevice. That was at Whistler. Snails love it. And then this is just some photos from other things. I didn't just look at plants, despite what most people think. I walked through London one afternoon. This is a cool hotel. It has a green wall. And with our side trips, Mark and a group of us went to Stonehenge and Bath. Bath is just a gorgeous little town or city. And then I even got to go to Pennsylvania, which is my home state. We were there for about 10 seconds. This is the town that actually William Penn, that is William Penn's grandfather, William Penn, who was the founder of Pennsylvania anyways, founded this place. And then William Penn grew up visiting it in Pennsylvania after his town. And so at 40 miles an hour, we went through it rather quickly, about 10 buildings. I think that was just the last of my little. Oh, you know, take it back. I have birds, but some of the others were, let's see, the Smiths, I think, were into the birds. And this is just a couple. There were so many birds, so cool. You go to, this is actually at Hyde Park. Hyde Park and Kensington Gardens were just a 10-minute walk for me, probably 15-20 minutes for everybody else, but from the hotel, and I would go there in the mornings and take pictures as well of the birds. There were so many.
It was a parrot, but you didn't.
It was a parrot?
It didn't have any.
I didn't have the caption.
Yeah, it did, but
I think it's is it a rosy-billed parrot, I think, or something, or parakeet, that they're naturalized in London. You see them in several of the gardens, but okay. I think it's Judy's turn.
Unless we're out of time already.
No, I went fast.
Okay. All right. So my job on this presentation was pulling all these other images together. So I spent a little bit of time pulling together some images. Actually, these were sent by Mary McClure. She couldn't be here tonight. And she spent one of the free days visiting Laurel Ascot. So we'll see how this goes. This was the entrance and some moving sculpture, I guess. And the beginning of the race, I believe. It's wild and that was very adventurous. But the story that I wanted to share was my experience. One of my very best friends in the whole world is English, and she grew up not too far from Hampton Court Palace, where her brother actually served as a gardener for about 13 years. Right out of high school, he began working as an apprentice and basically grew up working there. So we had the pleasure of meeting Rosie, my friend, and her brother Ian. And Ian took a small group of us on a tour of the gardens. So that was very special. Rosie's telling a story, in addition to Ian having worked there at the garden, I think if I get this right, their great-grandfather was the fireman on site, and so lived on the grounds of the palace, and Rosie's mother spent time there visiting on weekends, and basically I think it's still true today. There are a few of the staff who live on the grounds to this day, and once the gates close, it's a free-for-all, and so the kids grew up exploring the palace and finding all the ghoulies and ghosties, and Rosie's mom has stories about that, so she's sharing one of those stories. All right, does anyone who wasn't with us on the trip know what this is a picture of? I know there's some students here. Chris knows. Anybody else? Any of the students? Bryce Lane shows this photograph in his introduction to horticulture class. So the area back here is the fallow area. The roots of the grapevine are under this area, and the vine is actually housed in this greenhouse. And this is reportedly the oldest cultivated grapevine in the world. Now, the internet, everything I read on the internet is true, my husband always tells me. So there are some doubts whether that there may be some older vines at this time. But this was one of those cool moments of seeing that sign for real after I'd seen it in horticulture classes. And the point being that, they actually, how serious English gardeners are, and especially about their ancient treasures, that they actually leave this area in the garden fallow and cover it with manure every few years to protect this vine that's over 240 years old. And so the keeper of this grapevine lives in an apartment, oops, I'm trying to use the pointer, that is over here somewhere. So you're going to get a better view of this. The reason I'm dragging on this story is that one of Ian's supervisors when he worked in the garden was the husband of the keeper of the grapevine. And Ian had contacted him when we first arrived, said, I have some, my sister's friends are here from America, would you like to show them around? And he was unable to join us until after most of the group had gone back to London. And so when we were finishing our lunch, Les called back and he said, would you like to see the palace? And I looked at my friend Rosie and I said, yeah, that sounds great. So Les, who again had just retired from working at the palace, he'd worked there over almost 50 years. He had started when he was 15, had been commended by the royal family for various acts of bravery during his time there. So there's the grapevine on the inside. You can see Jill goes up on the ladders and prunes and pinches so that the vine will produce the best fruit. And just, I read something online today where she said, well, wouldn't it be awful to be the one who killed the grapevine? So serious about her job. And so this is one of the formal garden area of the palace gardens. But I use this image because I want you to look up here. As part of Liz's special private tour is that we ended up there on the roof. So that was something, Rosie and I just kept looking at each other, pinching ourselves, going, is this really happening? So it was interesting because we talked about knowing that many of us weren't going to have time to see the palace. We regretted because Ewan was explaining that the formal gardens were laid out to be viewed from inside the palace. Well, this is an even better view, I thought. I regretted I wasn't making movies. That would have been something to have seen the movie of us walking around up there. Some of those wonderful chimneys up close. I hadn't had a chance to admire those. And so there we are looking down on the grapevine and its field, and Les and Jill's apartment is somewhere over in here. So she can always be on call whenever the vine might need something. So that was just a very exciting opportunity. Let's see, a couple of other stories I'll tell you real quick. We laughed because Bob and I, most of you know, Bob and I keep chickens, and there's a story of visiting our friend Rosie, and Rosie saying, you really ought to go see the shopkeeper. He keeps a few chickens. We eventually got by to see the shopkeeper when they were living in a small town in England, and he kept a few chickens, a few national champions. So the typical understated British, the same thing was true of the Stoneleys garden. I think we felt like, oh, what a lovely garden, and found out towards the end of our visit, well, it was the best, it had been voted the best garden in England. So it wasn't just a cute little garden, it was very, very special, and a very special opportunity for us to be able to visit that garden, I think. And last, I'll just leave with, I think it was just special connections that made the trip possible and that I think developed during this trip. One of the side trips that I made was to the Garden Museum, which is in London, basically across the river from Parliament and that Westminster busy area of London. And as I was buying a few cards and leaving, one of the volunteers who was working at the counter was asking about my trip, and I can't remember, I guess we had already been to spend the day with Roy Lancaster at that time, and I sort of dropped, oh, and yes, we visited his personal garden, and she was quiet for a little while, and finally she said, and exactly how did you manage that? And I was able to tell her a little bit more about the Arboretum and about JC and about the relationship and how, you know, that the love of plants and the love of JC sort of brings people together. So that was really cool. So Mark's going to give you a little preview of some other traveling opportunities.
Yeah, I just have
Judy was responsible for actually putting all this together. We just dumped slides on top of it. Judy, hi.
Thank you, Judy.
So this, you know, this is just to whet y'all's appetite. We do have a couple of things in the works. I did not write down dates, and I can't remember numbers. So Chris, you can yell those out if you can remember. But we do have a couple things planned. One, for those of you who can't go all the way to England, but want some of the wonderful plants, we are going out to western North Carolina, which is, you know, somewhat more exotic than England sometimes.
On September 7th, 8th, and 9th.
September 7th, 8th, and 9th. And for those of y'all who really love plants, this is a plant buying trip. We're not visiting Biltmore, we're not visiting gardens. We're going to nurseries and we're going to buy plants and bring them back with us. So there are a bunch of wonderful nurseries. This is a couple. Bruce Applemore's nursery does fantastic conifers. He's just given, I can't remember the name of the award, but a major award. It's not a leg lamp, but another major award from the Conifer Society this fall at a meeting I went to. We're also going to visit a maple nursery and some perennial nurseries. So fantastic nurseries. If you're interested, let Chris know. You can put your name on the list because spots are limited, and it's a great deal. A couple nights out there in western North Carolina. But some fantastic nurseries. We do. What is it called now?
Meadowbrook.
I haven't been there since it was We Do Nursery, but we'll be going out there. Seeing some fantastic plants. We're also in late July, the last week, July, August, that crossover. We're going to go out to, planning to go out to Vancouver if we have enough interest from people, and several people have expressed interest. We don't have all the details yet for that, but Chris is working furiously on it. Go visit some of the fantastic gardens out there, and there are some of the most incredible gardens I've been to. Public gardens, Van Dusen Botanic Garden, great garden. It's one of my all-time favorite public gardens outside of Philadelphia. The one in Charlotte's too. See, I knew I had good taste. And Charlotte likes it. But also the University of British Columbia, one of the great collections of Asian plants in this country. Fantastic rock gardens out there. Of course, Bouchard Gardens. Looking at some other things, perhaps some whale watching. Abkhazi, Princess Abkhazi House, great rock gardens and displays out there. That looks like Van Dusen. But just wonderful gardens. So I'll leave it on that. So just if y'all are interested, let us know. Or if there are other places that you think you'd like to visit, in the U.S., outside the U.S., let us know, and perhaps we can arrange a visit to some of those places also. I got to tell you, and I think if you talk to anybody who went, we had a lot of fun. Even my wife, who doesn't like plants, she was there for part of it. She had a lot of fun with the group. So it's a lot of fun, even if you're not hardcore plant folks. All right, so hopefully we'll see you on one of these trips.
Are there any questions for any of our speakers or possibly any of the participants that were here on the trip also, since so many are here in the audience?
Carpinus spengiana. Well, it's a carpinus, or being, you know, one of those little clusters of flowers and fruits. Carpinus spengiana, they can grow this long, and you know they start off kind of light green and then turn kind of a buff tan color and hanging from the tree. They kind of look like little tails peeking out from the green leaves and all. It's an Asian carpinus, very difficult to propagate. It's very rare, and it's not in the trade. I have been needling Roy a little bit to maybe send some seed. I don't know that he's getting a good seed set, because usually the people who have them have one, and so you don't get a great seed set on them. So it's those rarities that's high up on the list list for myself and for the Arboretum. If I find it, I'm getting two. One for the Arboretum, one for me.
You all have more pictures of Chelsea.
We do have lots more pictures of Chelsea Physic Garden. If you want to see the pictures, go to the website, go to photography, search the web. You go to the search and put in. They have location. You can search by plant name, people name, photographer. You know all these different things. You can go to location and put Chelsea Physic Garden in there, and
It's a location field, not the garden.
yeah, the location field.
Yep, the location.
So yeah, and that'll bring up all the ones that everybody who most of the time the staff, when we take photos, we put it into the system so you can see photos from all over the place.
A number of years ago, they had a pretty rough winter storm. Is that pretty much healed over?
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of that really bad winter. I didn't see a whole lot of damage from that. You know, they lost some things outright, and those are long gone. But most everything that I saw, you could really see a lot of evidence. But it did decimate some of the great collections.